Hey, everybody, and welcome to the College Bowl Preview Show here on OpenSports.com. I'm Sid Rosenberg, sitting in for Amber Wilson, joined here by our very own college football analyst, Rob Shaw. Rob, good to see you again.
Always a pleasure, Sid.
Time now for the big one. We're talking about college football, 1 versus 2 for all the marbles. It's the BCS championship game. Florida, 12-1, taking on Oklahoma, 12-1. Let's start with this right off the bat. You got 2 football teams with the same record. Let's talk about conferences. For the longest time, everybody was under the impression the SEC is the toughest, down here for the ACC. All of a sudden, the Big 12 came rolling along this year, and Oklahoma had success, and Texas had success, and Texas Tech had success, and even Chase Daniel and Missouri had success, and even Wiesing and Kansas had success. SEC, Big 12, who gets the better matchup here?
Big 12. It's amazing. I mean, for so many years, you heard about the SEC this, the SEC that. No one has the speed like the SEC, and that might still be the case, but no one's got more high-powered offenses than the Big 12 these days. It's remarkable. I mean, we just saw it. Look at all the names that were under discussion when it came to the Heisman Trophy Award winners. Look at the running backs that you've got all over the place. Oklahoma State, Kendall Hunter was fantastic. You've got so many good teams in the Big 12. That's why there's controversy this year. Every year there's going to be controversy. But the fact that you have 3 teams that all beat each other, all had 1 loss, all had a right to be in this national championship game, and they all came from the Big 12.
The critics, or the guys that will stick up for the SEC, will say, listen, you can't have 5 great quarterbacks in one conference. Something's wrong there.
Bad defense.
Right, nobody plays defense.
Yeah.
Say what you want. The offenses in the SEC are down, no doubt about it, but Alabama sports a pretty good defense. Ole Miss this year had a pretty good defense. Even Auburn at times, and they fired their coach, they were okay as well. So what is really the story here? Is this about great offenses inside the Big 12, or is this about teams that just can't play any defense?
I think it's a little bit of both,
Yeah.
and I think that's the problem that Texas Tech ran into. I think that their lack of defense is what cost them the national championship. I mean, you look at what's going on with Oklahoma. I mean, this is a team that scored 60 or more points, I think, in 4 straight games. That's unbelievable. That's unheard of.
Perverse.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the thing is, and what's interesting also, I mean, and we'll talk about the quarterbacks in a second, but obviously the Florida offense isn't bad either. So it's going to be interesting. I think that we know who does have the edge when it comes to defense. The Gators, obviously a title contender for the last couple of years now. They have a good defense. As far as Oklahoma, their defense is good enough to allow their offense to outscore the opposition.
Fair enough. You talked about the quarterbacks. Big matchup here. You've got Sam Bradford. He won the Heisman this year. Tim Tebow, he won the Heisman last year. My opinion, Tim Tebow is the best player in the country. We're going to make predictions at the end of this segment, but right now I'll tell you, usually, for me, the team with the better defense and the big-time quarterback is going to win the game. Tebow's the best player in the country. I was okay with Bradford getting the award this year because, like you talked about, statistically, he put up these monster numbers. But I do know this. Tebow's won a championship. Bradford hasn't. How does that fare for Sam Bradford?
I agree with you. I think Tebow is the best player in the nation. The number that jumps out at me, and obviously Bradford had better numbers this year, but how could you be a quarterback and go against SEC defenses and throw 2 interceptions the entire year? That is so ridiculous. I don't think people understand. Jay Cutler was one of the best quarterbacks. I got to watch him in person at Vanderbilt. That guy had a couple of interceptions per game, and he was still a great quarterback. This is a guy who just went an entire season and threw 2 interceptions, and that's the important thing when it comes to these type of games. If you have a big game, who would you rather have, a guy who's got potential for huge numbers or a guy who you know is not going to make costly mistakes? In my mind, the answer is obvious. Tim Tebow's who I prefer.
Let's talk about one other facet of their game here. Bradford is still more of that, kind of drop-back passer, and, he takes a beating back there. He's a tough kid, but Tebow, of course, kills you in so many ways.
Yeah.
He'll just take that football straight up the middle and carry defenders on his back, and on a short yardage situation, Tim Tebow unstoppable. Bradford doesn't enjoy that same luxury here. How about that part of Tebow's game?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you had to compare him to someone, maybe Colt McCoy. McCoy is obviously more mobile than Bradford, but yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, that's the thing. And the funny thing about it, it's a shame because now I'm reading all these articles from the NFL scouts saying, oh, maybe a 3rd-round pick for Tebow. Are you crazy? This guy can throw it deep. I mean, he's got the ability to go deep as well as anyone. He's got a rocket arm. His numbers were always fantastic. The fact that he's mobile maybe takes a little attention away from his great passing, but then again, why throw the ball in the air when he can keep it on the ground and move it all day, which is exactly what Tebow can do, especially when we consider, as we talked about, the Big 12 defense is being a little soft. Oklahoma's maybe not the softest, but definitely not as strong as some of the SEC teams that Tebow's already dominated.
I think with the Wildcat offense being employed in the NFL these days, that may be something just right for Tim Tebow at the next level. We'll only play Sundays in 2 years. I think he'll be back at Florida next year. Let's talk about the coaching matchup here. Stoops, he's won a national championship. Josh Heupel at quarterback doesn't exactly bring back the vivid memories for college football fans. Urban Meyer won it just 2 years ago. Now Stoops has lost 4 straight BCS games, losing to West Virginia, Boise State, USC. The Boise State really stung. USC and LSU. Florida, winners of the championship just 2 years ago. Coaching matchup here. Stoops, Urban. Who gets the edge?
I'm going with Urban. I just think it's a safer offense. I think that keeping the ball on the ground, doing some special things there, surprising some people, handoff here, using Percy Harvin both as a receiver and a running back. I think that all of that flexibility allows them to keep the ball on the ground, which is safer. When it comes to these big games, look, I don't care who you are, you're going to be a little nervous. And it's like in baseball, why the hard throwers always do well in the postseason, because you could get away with a 98-mile-per-hour fastball over the plate. You can't throw junk and get away with it. That's what I feel about these quarterbacks. Bradford's going to throw the ball in the air, and just one minor mistake could cost him the game, while you look at Tebow and his ability and the coaching staff to keep the ball on the ground makes it a safer offense to deploy, and for that reason, I give the edge to Meyer.
You talked about Percy Harvin just now. He was banged up in a game late in the year against, I believe, Florida State. What is his health status for this football
They're
game?
saying he's going to play. I mean, he's got obviously a lot of time to rest. He didn't play recently, but I think before they were thinking of him as just maybe a decoy, just at least put him on the field and do something. They expect him to play. He's going to be a big factor in this one. So, whether or not they're going to hand the ball off to him a couple of times, I'm not sure. But he will be out there. I think he will be a factor in this one. The bigger injury really is Oklahoma losing DeMarco Murray. This is a guy who ran for a bunch of yards this year, had a very fine season. His loss is going to be a greater impact because Harvin is expected to play.
I agree. They had 2 1,000-yard rushers this year, Oklahoma. He and Chris Brown, and the injury to DeMarco Murray also hurts special teams. In fact, he got hurt on a kickoff return, and they're going to miss him big time. I agree with you. So here you go. We talked about the coaches. We've talked about the quarterbacks. We've talked about the conferences. We've talked about both teams being very, very strong on offense. We're both in agreement here. Florida's got the edge on defense. Florida's got the best player in the nation. With all that said, it seems like we're mounting a pretty good case here for Florida to win. Can Oklahoma win this football game?
Is it that obvious? Yeah. I'm siding with the Gators. Look, it's an unbelievable year for Oklahoma, and it could have been any of those teams. It could have been Texas. It could have been Texas Tech. They're all very similar. They're all that high-powered offense. It can really move the ball. But when it comes to who's the team with experience on the big stage, who's the team that plays it safe, that's not making huge mistakes, I think it's impossible to go against Tebow and the Gators.
What does it say about Urban Meyer's legacy if they win this championship? Steve Spurrier is still a godlike figure up there in the northern part of the state. If they win their second championship in 3 years, what does that put Urban Meyer?
As long as he doesn't have a press conference with the Orlando Magic, I think that I think he might be the biggest legend there right now. It's unbelievable what they've done. I mean, obviously he came in. They've had a couple of bad years. Zook ran out of town despite his great recruiting. And here's a guy who's able to do it all, and now he's doing it with more of his own players.
Tim Tebow with a Heisman and his second national championship. Does he come back next year to tie Archie Griffin?
I think he's different than the average player because he doesn't need the money. I think that this is a guy who's already basking in the glory. He enjoys college, and I think he will be back.
Either way, we both agree that this is a terrific matchup. You can make the argument for Texas, no doubt about it, but a terrific matchup, and certainly, if not the 2 best teams in the country, 2 of the top 3.
And if there was a playoff, I truly do believe these are the 2 teams we'd see. So I think this is as good as it gets.
Oh, there you go. Florida taking on Oklahoma for all the marbles. Both Rob and I like the Florida Gators to win their second championship in 3 years. I want to thank you again for watching all of our college football preview shows. Enjoy the big one between Oklahoma and Florida. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Think you can complete the drive? Play today and get an automatic entry to win daily prizes, 2 tickets to the big game, and a brand new car. Start your drive today at opensports.com.